12:03 exactly. And guys, I'm getting feedback. But anyway, welcome to the show. We are going to talk with Victorine Mbong. She has been in education and training since 2002. She is the CEO of Profound Intelligence Management Services, a peak performance authority, coach, editor, publisher, researcher, transformational speaker, material developer, facilitator, assessor, and moderator. She's the co-owner of Profound Conference Center in Bramley, Johannesburg, and she's been on the show many a time. Gives me great pleasure to have her here once again to talk about parenting teenagers during lockdown, how to minimize the damage. Are you there? Good morning. Welcome, my dear friend. So good to have you on the show once again. How are you doing?
I'm right here. Thank you so much. It's so lovely to see you. And we're doing very well at this part of Johannesburg.
Okay. You wrote an article, Parenting Teenagers During Lockdown, How to Minimize the Damage. Now, thankfully, from the 1st of May, we're going to go down to level 3, which means the restrictions, those horrid restrictions, I think, are going to be lifted somewhat. We're also hearing the Minister of Education suggesting that certain grades are going back to school. Pardon, I said May. Restrictions are going to be lifted on the 1st of June, and then some school kids are going to go back to school as of the 1st of June as well. How does that change the article you've written? And talk to us about what was it that made you write the article? What was it that was playing out around you and families that you know that prompted you to write this article?
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity, my dear sister. You know, the lockdown has not been very good for many people. Many people have really not taken it well. But I'll start with the question that you've asked. The immediate reason why I wrote the article is because I got information that a friend of my nephew had run away from home and the police were in search, or the parents were in search of him. He was only 14 years old, you know, and 14 is the beginning of teenage life. We all know that being a teenager starts at 13, so it's young teenage life. And in my own house, I've got a 13-year-old and a now 15-year-old. So it got me thinking. My same brother, who was informed of the child's friend, has a 15-year-old and an 18-year-old. It got me thinking about how our children have been having beautiful lifestyle, if I could call it like that, even though they might not agree with me. Meanwhile, at the other side, many children are going through what you and I would classify as abuse. And for many of these children, it's just a lifestyle because they don't have a voice to tell whether they're being abused or they're being treated well. And the immediate reason for the article was to talk to parents, you know, to find out why a 14-year-old would run away from home, the parents' home, where they would be going to, what really provoked them to run away, and how these parents would manage it such that it doesn't happen again. Hence, the title says, Minimizing the Damage.
Victorine, what about, you know, you get children and you get children. You get those that are downright possibly spoiled. We have given them too much too soon. So they have this culture of expectation. And if they don't get their way, they are going to have a tantrum. And one of the ways they can have a tantrum is to run away from home. And that way they're playing you, the parent. So you're asking them, you know, you kind of accede to all of their ridiculous demands just to keep them at home and not to lose your child.
You know, what you've said is it's very, very good, you know, and I don't know if it's a question or a statement, but I'll put it in there to say most often children play out in the way that we train them. You know, when my brother told me that this child had run away, the first question I asked was, how would a 14-year-old understand that they can run away from home? You know, and this is because we have groomed them to think that the home is not a safe place for them, or to think that a hideout is a way of seeking attention, but positive attention from us. This child ran away because the father had gotten him beaten. Why would you, in the first place, beat a 14-year-old without first of all resorting to dialogue? You know, so as a parent, it's very important that before we think that the children are spoiled, or before we think that the children are given everything that they have, it's very important for us to interrogate who spoiled the children, who gave the children what they have, and fix that person who is spoiling the children, because you cannot fix a child when you yourself are spoiled.
So let's take the scenario, Victorine, and look at a situation where you haven't been a great parent, you haven't been a great role model. The child has grown up possibly without boundaries, and you're now wanting to fix it. You don't want this child to run away. You don't want this child to be lining up on street corners, getting involved with the wrong friends. Knowing that we are still in lockdown, and that also puts a lot of pressure on all the role players here. And I imagine that everybody is feeling a bit stir crazy. So people would kind of also act out of character. Yeah. How do you, as a parent, knowing that you didn't do right by your child, is it too late to put down boundaries? Is it too late to start fixing things, regardless of the age of the child? Do you have room? If you have an older child, a young adult, and things didn't go well in the relationship at all, and you want to fix that relationship, how do you navigate all of these boundaries?
You've just asked a very beautiful question. And one of the things that I've been advocating to families is to say, use this time of lockdown to mend your relationships. Because if you miss it now, you might never have it again. You know, there is a reason why we are confined in the only spaces that we have, the only spaces that we could be in as families. So use this space properly. And one of my books is titled Not Too Late. And in my book, Not Too Late, I state to parents to say it's never, ever too late. Even on your dying bed, you can amend your relationship with your children. Never, ever think that it is late. Preceding this article, I had written another article on family communications, and I had outlined strategies that you can use to start up communication in a family that previously didn't have a good relationship, and to fix your communication in a family that had had a broken relationship. So I advise parents to weigh on communication. You know, it doesn't matter how the relationship is. It doesn't matter. Your child or your relative cannot block you now because you are confined in the same space with them. Remember, when they could go out, they could run away. So what you do is persistently, but diligently, politely, giving and respecting their own space, ask them for time to sit down and have a genuine communication on how things are, and tell them that you know very well that the two of you might not agree during this conversation, but what you want is that the communication should happen, and let it happen. A communication is not a solution.
Some of them do use avoidance tactics. If they don't like what is being discussed, they may walk away, or they may become very defensive. And that defense, depending what tactic they use, might become aggressive. And I think in a lot of cases, parents kind of hold back because I think we've given away too much of our power too soon to our children. So they just to keep the peace, they avoid explosive or conversations that might end up being very explosive.
You see, that is a major problem that I have in the job that I do when I coach parents or when I coach families. One of the problems, and I think it's a very big challenge for me, given that I do not understand how a child grows up in a culture where that child overpowers the parents. You know, no matter how many books I've read, no matter how many people I've talked to, no matter how many conversations I will have on the media, it still doesn't go down with me that a child is possibly able to overpower the parent. you know, especially when that child is still staying with the parents, because it's a culture that I've never been exposed to until now. It's a culture that I've not accepted. So I would say to parents, speaking from the outsider, because it's easier for me who doesn't know the culture to speak to you, but speaking from the outsider perspective, I would say to parents, examine yourself, because that child is reacting. That child is not acting. The child's decisions that or reactions that you have given me are not actions. They are reactions to how you are treating them. So examine your own self in how you are playing out in all this, and handle yourself better. Don't focus on the child. What most of the modern parents do is that they focus on the child. And once you focus on the child, you're actually teaching that child to retaliate in the only power that they have. Because teenage is a time when children are finding their identity. And when you want to overpower them, they seem to feel like you don't want them to find themselves. So they react to you in the ways that you've just outlined. So parents, please focus on fixing yourself and accepting that your child is growing, that your child is building their own identity that might not simply align with the identity that you've trained them, but you would have to, at the same time, keep building them. Do not give away your powers.
Is it a good idea to draw up a contract when you're having this conversation? So a part of the contract would be, for example, we don't interrupt each other. You know, we can agree to disagree. We will then agree to do certain things going forward, and we stick with the contract. Whatever the issues are in that particular family, it might have to do with possibly downtime or playtime or dating time or whatever the case may be. What if the child doesn't accept that? What if they want to rewrite the rules? How do you take back that power?
Yeah, a very beautiful stanza. And when I say yes, I'm not saying yes to a contract because I wanted to ask you, are you talking about a written contract or a verbal contract? Which one are you referring to?
You know, whichever is going to work for the family. Maybe sometimes it's better to have it down in writing so that you can keep referring, say, remember point 3 or point 4. I don't know, you know, it would depend on the dynamics of the family.
You know, for me, I think I agree with you. Contracts are values. So when you're teaching your children your family values, you're actually teaching them your family contracts, you know, the things that work and the things that do not work. I do not agree in written values and in written contracts, excuse me. And the reason is that once you get into a written contract with your child, you've actually delegated your powers as a parent to the law. Wow. Because written now means that you're passing over the middle person. You're bringing together a middle person to parent your child. And that middle person now becomes a law that you have put together, because you're going to start telling the child that you are obligated because it's in writing. No, it doesn't have to be in writing. They are obligated because it's in their head. What you want to put in your child is a mental capacity to remember the things that you have told and acted and done with or for them. You know, and if they go against that, you do the simple things that you did to your toddler when that same child was a toddler. What you had done was you had reminded them every time they went wrong. Parenting a toddler and parenting a teenager is exactly the same thing, you know, because you remember teenagers don't even greet. Most of them, when they walk into a room, you have to say to them, hi, greet me, hi, do this. You remind them all over again. So take yourself as a parent back to when you were parenting that child as a toddler and reenact or remind them of the things that work in your family, the things that don't work in your family. When it comes to dating time, okay, they skip the rule by 30 minutes. You ask them, what do you think you can do to make up for those 30 minutes that you had broken? And they tell you what they can do, and both of you sit down and you implement. So always throw back the powers at them also to punish themselves. Once you do that, they take responsibility and they start thinking that you value and respect them as an individual. You're giving them power to grow in their own lives. But what you are doing is you're disciplining them. Another thing is that we parents are too busy to the extent where we don't follow up. So this day we are inconsistent. Let me put it that way. This day you punish them or you discipline them for doing this, and then the next day you tolerate it. This child would not understand why on the third day you have to come back again and discipline them. So we are not consistent. And once we start living consistently, the children understand that they cannot do this. But the one thing you don't want to do, every parent listening to us now, is to bring your children at equal level with you. You can't do that. You have to keep your authority.
Children can't be your friends. Your children can't be your friends.
They can be your friend, but friends we meet, friends for needs. So my child is my friend when I need to play. I can befriend them and play with them. They are my friend at play. But once we finish the play and we in the kitchen, I'm the mom, I direct that child what quantity of salt to put on the pot when they cook.
Mm-hmm. Victorine, another issue is, again, I guess it's because we give our children too much too soon. But what about when you find your young teenagers or young adult children lie to you? So you're in conversation, you ask questions. Maybe it has to do with the way you ask the questions and they feel cornered. And as a parent, you've got that gut instinct when you know the child is either avoiding you or lying to you. What do you do?
Is true. You make them talk the truth. So basically, in my house, we are very strict parents, and my children have grown to know that lie is the one thing. I think I can tolerate you for stealing, but I cannot tolerate you for lying. Lying is the one thing that I do not take kindly at all. And my children do lie, believe it or not. Not a single day passes without them telling a lie. They do lie. What you do is, after the incident, forget about it for a few minutes, cool down, call them again and ask them if what they told you was genuinely what they meant. And they would, some of them, open up and say, no, that's not what I meant. Some of them would still say, yes, that is what I meant. Cool down. Next day, call them again and tell them that as a parent, I have been a teenager. Some of the things that you did, I have done. And I can tell when you're telling the truth and when you're lying. Tell me the truth, because the consequences of lying are bigger than the consequences of not lying, of telling the truth, and the child will tell you the truth. Remember, again, the child's ability to hold on to that lie stems from how you react when they tell you that they lied to you. Remember. So
I like what you're saying because sorry for the interruption. I think if you outrightly accuse the child of lying to you, you're just going to make them close up. They're not going to open up to you at all. But I like your approach because you're giving them an opportunity to right what was wrong. Yes. That they had told a lie, so to correct that perception for you. So you're allowing them the opportunity. It's almost like you're saying, it's okay. You said something to me in the heat of the moment, or you were afraid of the consequences, or you were afraid of my reaction. But please just explain that to me all over again, because you're also showing respect to them when you do that.
Yes, and you're winning their trust. So what happens is, remember, it takes guts to tell you that, yes, mommy or daddy, I was lying. So once the child has opened up to you to say, yes, they were lying, that is already their sin. They've already paid for that sin. That is already punishment enough. Do not punish them. Do not discipline them negatively anymore. What you do is you congratulate them and you tell them that it feels better to always know the truth. You were not asking to know because you wanted to penalize. You were asking to know just to settle yourself, because as a mother, you knew that they lied and you needed them to clarify their conscience so they can be happy with their own self. You say that to them and then you move on. Do not, for any reason, try to punish them when they open up to you, because once you do that, they will not open up again in future. You can punish or penalize a child when they do not open up. But when they do, reward them actually, so that it then builds a trust, it then builds a positive relationship between the two of you. And in future, this child will now know that, okay, each time I say the truth, my parents do not punish me. But each time I don't say the truth, my parents penalize me for that. And they will then lean on the truth most of the time.
We are now working towards level 3 lockdown. So I should imagine things are going to be a little easier, very especially since children are going to go back to school as well. How do we prepare our children, having been in lockdown for over 60 days? We want them to be responsible. We don't want them to go absolutely wild, possibly in the malls, in the school, and to throw caution to the winds. How do we support them in being responsible?
That is a good question also, and most parents are actually in panic mode right now because they are worried about how they're going to handle this, especially parents of teenagers, given that grade 12s are the first people to go back to school in most of the cases or most of the schools. And what I advise parents is that please start now to practice. Start now to practice with your child about how to handle themselves when they go out there. Children are going to be overexcited. The adrenaline is going to go high. They are going to look at the outside world and go like, oh, wow, I have to make up for the times that I missed indoors. You know, start now to talk to them. Start now to settle them. Start now to assure them and to remind them that the house is the safest place that they can be and that their friends are next to their closest companions after their family. They mustn't jeopardize their relationship with their friends. They must respect their friends' own values in their own houses, because who do they spend time out there with? They spend time with their peers. So let them respect these peers so that the peers can also give them the attention that they need. Once you help your friend to disrespect their parents, you're jeopardizing the opportunity for that friend to spend time with you again. You know, so give them a beautiful lecture for them to know that the consequences of what they would do after the lockdown might be so far-reaching that they would be self-destroying and not actually enjoying the time that they so look forward to enjoying out there. You know, we have an example here in our house where we always say to the children, you have to respect the values that other people have put in place for their children, not necessarily infringe your own values on them. You know, and it's the same thing with staying out, because now we're going to, when you said that things will be better for the parents, it will actually be harder, because now parents are going to go back to that routine of staying out times, children disrespecting it and all that. If a teenager knows that the cutoff time in their house is 6 o'clock and the cutoff time in their friend's house is 8 o'clock, some of them will deliberately want to stay and keep their friend's companion until 8. So start talking to them now to say to them, you know what, you have to really respect that, because the one thing I tell my children very clearly is that if I become an abusive parent today, it's simply because you refuse to take my orders. If you take my orders, I would never be abusive to you. And it's the same thing with you correcting me. It doesn't mean that my child should not correct me. If I do something wrong to them and they don't correct me, that wrong thing that I did to them would be an abuse that they are accommodating, where they should have corrected me so I don't abuse them again. So it should be a two-way conversation.
Sadly, Victorine, our children, we as parents try to be the perfect parents. We try to give them the best of upbringings as we can. But once they go out into the school environment, they're exposed to so many different personalities from different homes with different rules, as you say. They're going to come home and start engaging with you or start becoming difficult because they're going to accuse you of treating them like a baby. You're treating me like a child. My friend can stay out till 8 o'clock and I have to be home at 6. So they're going to try and manipulate the situation and accuse you of controlling them to the point where there is a possibility that they're going to start rebelling. What do we do to avoid getting into a situation of a rebellious teenager?
Communication
and more communication.
You know, when your child trusts you, they cannot rebel against you. When you trust your child, that child that you trust cannot rebel against you, because they know that if they rebel against you, they're destroying you, they're destroying themselves. So what you do from the time a child is small is build a culture of trust in the house and build an open communication culture for the house. Of course, every single child would rebel because, like I said, there is that clash of personality once a child becomes a teenager. They want to prove to the parent that they can handle themselves. They want to prove to the parent that they are grown-ups, you know. But there would always be those clashes. And each time one comes up, you have to cut it off before it spreads. If you let it be, it will attract more. So try and make sure that you and your child have a close relationship. Research has shown that children who have close relationship with their parents are hardly rebellious. They are more manipulative though. They are not rebellious. And you know, a manipulative child can be more dangerous than a rebellious child because you don't know where they stand. But at the same time, the feeling, the hurt is much more different in the sense that most manipulative children would actually come back to you to confess, to say, I did this because of this, even before you find out. So there is that trust that they will manipulate you and get their way, go out there, come back, but they are not deliberately hurting you like a rebellious child would do. So try and focus on trust and communications. These two things is what a teenager needs from their parents. And this is what parents also need from their teenagers. It should be a give and take relationship.
And that's where we leave it. Thank you indeed for this amazing article. I do hope the rest of the family are doing well. Till we talk with you again sometime in the future, have a great, great, great day. My love and regards to the rest of the family, very especially to Tracy Frew.
Thank you so much. She's going to be on your program at 3:30. So thank you on the channel.
Brilliant. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you. Keep well.